Hello and welcome to Cult Movie Cult, where we watch and discuss the horrific, the obscure, and the flat-out strange from the other side of cinema. I'm Mark Dickerson.
And I'm Jeremy Fink.
And with us today is a listener of the show, looking to officially become a member of the cult, and that is Jill Bell. So Jill, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, we're excited.
Exciting.
This is going to be a fun one.
So this is the fourth installment in our series 80s Indies, and today we'll be discussing 1983's Valley Girl, directed by Martha Coolidge.
My God! What a hunk! Oh, yeah. Check out those pecs! Oh, I'd go for that in a minute, for sure. He's hot! Oh, yeah, he's my kind of guy. Aren't they all? Dude. Well, most of them are. Hey, they didn't have for nice. I felt like I hate them so much.
Hey, man. 23727 Sierra Vista. It's a party. It is going to be amazing. I've seen the chicks. I know about these things, and I got a feeling about this one. It is going to be hot, I'm telling you. And it's in the valley. What? The party's in the valley. I don't want to go to the valley. Trust me. I don't want to go to the valley. I'm not in the mood to go to the valley.
Valley Girl is a 1983 American teen romantic comedy film directed by Martha Coolidge and starring Nicolas Cage and Deborah Foreman. It tells a Romeo and Juliet-inspired story of Julie, a young lady from the San Fernando Valley, and Randy, a young man from Hollywood, as they try to make their love work despite their cultural differences.
Yeah, and this is many times with the series, as it has been. I have never seen this movie before. This is my first time, and I really enjoyed it. It was, I was telling Joe a little bit before we started here today. Nothing like I expected it to be honest. It was almost more like a Fast Times at Ridgemont High kind of feel to it, which I was not expecting. But oddly enough, Jill, we had emailed back and forth. I know originally you had wanted to talk about Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, which Jeremy and I both love that movie.
Great movie.
We would love to talk about it on the show. We just don't know when that's going to happen. So I just kind of threw out what movies we were discussing for this series. And, you know, Valley Girl, I guess, happened to be one of your favrives.
It is my favorite movie. And I
it
say
is your
that
favorite
without
movie. Wow.
a shred of irony. Yes.
It's great.
Yes.
I enjoyed it. So I guess to start off, just want to introduce yourself a little bit and tell us why you have this connection to Valley Girl, I guess.
Yeah. So I was doing the math, and I think I first saw Valley Girl when I was 11, and I believe my cousins had the bootleg. And I remember, like, watching it and feeling like, oh, this is what, like, love is like. This is what...
Yeah.
Like
you were learning
passion,
about love. Yeah.
Yes. And this is what like longing is. And as I got older, like that was my first introduction to like, oh, this is like teenage longing. This is what I'm going to feel like. But as I got older, it became like my ideal of like, this is what a relationship is like. They're supposed to be grand romantic gestures in relationships. That's how you know someone cares about you. And then when it wasn't happening because teenage boys in the 80s were not watching the same movies I was watching, then I had to manifest the drama to sort of like, how can I get these grand romantic gestures? Like, I want someone sleeping out on my lawn. I want someone to be like pining for me. So
yeah, between this and Say Anything, it's like,
oh yeah,
you wanted some kind of grand gesture at least. Yeah.
Yeah. We were being fed some real misguided messages in the 80s. I don't know if the boys were watching the same movies, but my guess is
probably watching Porky's.
Yeah, my guess is
Porky's.
That's a whole
like,
different kind of message.
I think the world. I don't know if the Me Too movement would be where it is if we weren't watching such different movies back then.
That's true. Good point. Yeah.
But yeah, and I also was like just starting to get into the punk scene and just being like, what? Like dipping my toe in and being like, oh, I like subcultures. I like things that are a little weird and a little different. And like being a kid of the 80s and not the internet not being around, like anything that you could find that like remotely encapsulated what you were interested in, you just like grabbed onto it because you didn't know where you were going to find that again. Like,
yeah.
You just, the way you found things was sort of like little surprises or really long searches.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, other people saw that, like, oh, you know this movie? This movie wasn't just made for me to watch? That's crazy. And then you like...
Yeah, that's kind of our thing on this show. That's what we, the kind of things that we talk about. And you mentioned subculture, and it's like a perfect segue for me because the previous film in this series that we've discussed that you wouldn't know yet because we haven't posted it yet, but it's a movie called Smithereens and takes place in New York. So that is also about sort of like punk music and that kind of scene. And this movie, Valley Girl, explores an entirely different scene or subculture on the other side of the country than Smithereens did. But like that movie, this movie's kind of like a snapshot of this time in like that movie was a snapshot of New York. This movie is a snapshot of the San Fernando Valley and LA in California, which I don't have much experience with. So do you have any connection to that area at all, Jill? Or?
I don't at all, but kind of what I was wondering when I was watching it the other night was, when this movie was it made in a way that we were, like, the watchers were supposed to be like, oh, wow, look at how these, like, crazy Californians talk? Or was that just how people were talking, like, of that age, and that was the norm?
Yeah.
Like,
So from what I found on that, it looks like, in doing a little bit of research, that the movie actually kind of originally... There was a popular, I believe, I think
Frank
it was
Zappa?
just a song.
Moon
a popular
Zappa's
Frank
song.
Zappa song.
Yeah. Oh, it was Moon
at the
Zappa.
time.
Yeah.
Was it Moon
Yeah, his
Zappa?
daughter.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's that popular song at the time, and so I think this Valley Girl kind of image, whether it was like actually how Valley Girls were, or it was just kind of this thing that people believed that's how Valley Girls were. It was kind of a popular thing at the time.
It's like chicken
and
or the egg.
Yeah, and it looks like it was kind of like people had talked about for a while trying to make a Valley Girl movie. Actually, I believe Frank Zappa and Moon Unit Zappa were in discussion with that too, but it fell through.
Yeah.
But then eventually, somehow, the idea kind of came around to Martha Coolidge to do this low budget movie, and I guess took off after that.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned the dialogue. It's like I actually wrote down some choice quotes right from the beginning of the movie. Very 80s. I mean, the series is 80s indies, and you don't get much more 80s than this. But like some of the lines were, he's so bitchin', he's got the bod, bummed to the max, this kind of stuff.
Brains are bad news.
I loved it. I mean, I thought it was great.
But what I thought was interesting is the bulk of the really, really heavy Val talk seems to happen in that first scene.
In that first, yeah.
And then it
exactly.
peters out to still, I mean, it's still like tossed in, but not as much as like that first mall montage scene where
that scene,
we're being introduced.
Yeah, when that opening happened, I was like, all right, so this is what we're getting into here.
Yeah, we're going all the way.
Yeah, so, but no, you're right. I think the movie changes a lot as it goes and kind of gets away from that. So it's almost like they're getting it out of their system a little bit, or at least introducing you to the world, I guess, is what they were doing.
Yes.
So as you said, we start at the mall, and we're introduced to all the girls, including Julie, who's our main character, one of our main characters, and they're scoping out the dudes. They're in the food court. We're introduced to her ex Tommy, who's a real jerk. He's just that guy is just a real piece of work. That Tommy. And then
it's hard to believe that these are high school, possibly juniors in high school.
We see that a lot with these actors sometimes. It's like, it's a little bit of a stretch. E.G. Daily also is in this movie, and she has kind of some cult cred. She was in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. She does a lot of voice work. I actually met her at a convention one time, oddly enough. Got a picture with her and stuff.
She did Tommy Pickles on the Rugrats.
Tommy Pickles, yes. She's Tommy Pickles.
She's also... She's in my second favorite movie, which is she has a bit part in a movie called Fandango.
Fandango, I haven't seen that.
Which is Kevin Costner. It's got Judd Nelson, and she has a very small part in it. But when I was young, I thought her body was amazing.
I had a huge crush on her, for sure.
Yeah, to give you a little sense, like as a younger kid, like, because of the world was like it was, I was really obsessed with boobs, and
you get some of that in this movie too,
Not as much as others, but I was very familiar with like Dolly Parton and
legendary.
who was the other one? And other actresses who were like endowed, and like my mom's. So I was just like, oh, this is what's gonna happen to me. So I was like really obsessed with seeing like 80s movies and TNA, but like I just thought she had such like an amazing body because she's not really tall and she's not even like super skinny, but she's just like this compact actress, and she has like this huge hair, and like I just totally I loved her look.
I mean, I saw her in person. I can vouch for it. She actually looks.
While we're on that topic though of nudity in this movie, actually a thing that I read in a New York Times article was that when the project was pitched or when Martha Coolidge, I guess, was pitching the project, the financier said that she could make it and that they would fund the entire movie as long as there were 4 shots of nude breasts in the movie.
Right.
And that was actually like because we were still in like this exploitation age with a lot of slasher films and that kind of thing. So I think like it's just interesting because I think that, because that was one of the requirements, I guess, for her to make the movie, I thought she did actually approach it in a really creative way. Yeah. I think it would have been really easy to like
they were well placed.
It's
They didn't feel gratuitous. Like they made sense to the scene.
Right.
Yeah, they served the story, which I thought was great, and I think a big part of that is the fact that we have a woman directing this movie, because so many of these kind of like raunchy teen comedies were directed by men and had these very kind of male gazy, porkies. Yeah. And so this one, I think it was really cool that even though like they still like had that element.
It still
in the
sucks
movie,
that she had to do it, but that's just the way it kind of was at that point. And also if she wanted to get financing, like you said. So literally she had the requisite amount of nudity in this film. But yeah, I thought tastefully done. I thought it wasn't anything too gratuitous. I thought it seemed like she kind of got it out of the way a little bit, and I think once it gets to a certain point, there's not really much more of it. But it wasn't too distracting, but it was it was pretty clear what was going on. So also that opening, we go to the beach with the main characters, and this is where we meet Nicolas Cage,
the great
character,
equalizer.
Randy. Yes, we all love Nicolas Cage. I was saying to Jeremy, like when we were talking about potential movies to discuss, the second I saw Nicolas Cage was in this, I was like, I'm in. That's all I need.
Sold.
So I'm sold. I love him. So yeah, he plays Randy. This is one of his first movies. I think he had done Rumblefish before this for his uncle, Uncle Coppola.
Uncle Francis.
Uncle Francis. And his character is more of like a punker in this, an outsider, I guess. And there's a party in the valley. And right off the bat, we get that he's not really into that whole scene. He's not, doesn't want to really be part of it. He's a little curious about it, but that's about it. He's more of like an instigator. He just likes to, kind of get in there and mess things up, which he eventually does. But right away, we're introduced to this kind of like really snappy, I thought, witty dialogue. It's very of the time, like we discussed, but also felt strangely modern in some ways. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but I kind of felt like the brevity of it, and just kind of was very, very snappy, like you see in a lot of like maybe modern shows and things like that. And I also liked Julie's hip parents who were introduced to. I think they actually used to be hippies, I guess we're getting from their characters, but there's kind of like
Frederick Forrest.
Yeah.
From Apocalypse Now. And it lives again.
Yep. That was not expected at all when I saw that. But yeah, I like the kind of like hints at their wild past that they had. And I think Julie has a line. She's like, why don't you just punish me like the other parents do? And her mom's like, bad karma, dear. So great lines like that. Yeah.
There are good ones. I like the beach scene. What I loved about that is because people were only wearing your bathing suits. No one had a sense of where anyone was from. So all the girls that were sitting with Julie, all her friends were like, they saw Nicolas Cage and they're like, oh yeah, he's totally bitching.
Yeah, totally bitching.
And nobody had any, since, everyone was just in beach attire, nobody had any judgment. So like there, when they saw each other, they were like, oh yeah, he's good looking. He's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we should mention that this movie is partly based on, well, loosely based on Romeo and Juliet, just the concept, I guess. Yeah. Although they do allude to it. I mean, her name is Julie. And in the background at one point, you see on the theater marquees, Romeo and Juliet's playing. So.
I never made that connection until just hearing you say it.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Randy with the R for Romeo.
Randy.
Never.
Yep.
They lead into it.
J and R. Yep.
JNR.
Um,
But
so there is a little bit of that, like two different worlds, you know, but they have this love that transcends. But so from there, just to kind of go through the plot a little bit more, there's a party, and this is kind of like a big long party scene, which is always good in these kinds of movies. And I just want to talk about the soundtrack for a second because I
So
was
good.
blown away. Yeah, phenomenal soundtrack. Again, the last film we talked about was Smithereens, and although that movie is about music, there wasn't very much music in it. More just kind of instrumental, you know, background soundtrack music. But in this movie, there is wall to wall, you know, pop songs and, well, I guess more like new wave songs, things like that.
And not even like super well known 80s songs in the way that we know 80s songs now. I mean, some of them were
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Melt With You, but there were a few
Right,
in there
there's a
that
couple.
I only know from that movie, and they're
Right.
great songs.
Yeah, a lot of new wave, and I think you're right, Joe. Like songs that you wouldn't normally hear, but like they're very distinctly 80s, obviously. And so for a smaller budget indie film, I'm sure a lot of that budget went to the music rights.
yeah, I saw a number. It said, and I can't confirm this, obviously, but it said that the movie itself was made for about $350,000, and the music rights on top of that, so not as part of that 350, but on top of that were 250,000. So we're talking about like almost half the budget going just to soundtrack.
Well, the soundtrack has The Clash and Culture Club on it, and I do not remember hearing that in the movie. So I don't know if it was a really bit part or if it got
Sparks. I don't know if you know the
but it
band.
is-
I don't know if you know the. I believe Sparks plays. Do you know that band's a very odd, quirky band?
They do Ants in
Your Pants, I
in My-
think.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
Angst in Your Pants. Sorry. Yeah. That's in the party scene. I couldn't believe when I heard it. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this. So right away they had my respect with the soundtrack. I thought
Great
it was
soundtrack.
Yeah. Like for that alone, I think it's worth watching this movie. And so this is a party scene where Randy and Julie really first, you know, I would say meet and talk to each other, and he approaches her, and neither of them seem to be having the best time there. Randy calls it a costume party, actually. And eventually he gets in a fight. He gets punched out by Tommy, you know, for talking to his girl who's not even with him
Oh, we
anymore.
left out that she broke up with Tommy at the
Right.
mall
Yeah,
very
she-
abruptly.
Oh, what, so did they break up or were they already broken up? I actually forget.
They broke up at the mall, and that was
okay.
the day of the party. So the next time
okay.
she sees him is when he is parading floozies in front of her,
Including her friend.
and including her friend
E.G. Daly, I can't remember her name in the movie. I could just pull it up in a second.
Lorna.
Lorna. Or
Lauren,
Lauren. Sorry, Lauren.
Lauren.
Yeah, yeah.
Lauren.
With
Lauren.
a Y. Lauren with a Y. So yeah, her and Tommy kind of get hot and heavy there for a bit, which is sort of like a scandalous thing. They don't really touch on it that much. It's sort of like this background thing that's going on.
There's a lot of little subplots in this movie, and that's one of the things I love about it, that
Yeah.
play into it but are never fully fleshed out and are never really
Which is
covered
kind of
again.
cool in a way.
Yeah, because that's kind of how life
It's more
is.
like real life, exactly.
Yeah. But he sort of takes advantage,
Takes advantage of situation
and Lauren seems to be very in need of boy attention, and that's kind of brought up in the
yeah.
early
Like she-
on when the girls are getting ready for the party.
Like she's sort of jealous of Julie and the boys that she gets, I guess. But I think it's Nicolas Cage who has another really good line. I'm not sure if it's him or his friend, but when they first see Julie, like that chick Julie, she's truly dazzling.
Truly
It's like-
dazzling.
It's like, wow, dialogue like that. Like, how do you even write that?
Yeah,
Jeremy, we need to work on our script writing skills. Like,
I know. I don't think I've ever called anyone dazzling in a
truly
script.
dazzling.
Truly
Which is
dazzling.
also a great scene because I don't think he had been talking to her for that long.
Yeah.
I mean, his feelings are very intense, very quickly.
Very
but
intense, yeah. And then
He makes a
eventually-
lot of direct eye contact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's he's kind of like intimidating, but I guess it's like that angsty punk kind of thing. But so Randy gets kicked out of the party and eventually sneaks back in through the bathroom window. I like that whole scene where he's like sitting in the shower and just kind of listening to people, and
Just waiting.
there's like that.
One thing that popped into my head during that scene, which is just was funny, is just that no one it actually goes to the bathroom at any point. You have like 5 different people
They're
coming in.
doing everything
like,
else.
People, like some people smoking some weed, some
Right.
people,
No one
doing their
uses
makeup. No one uses the bathroom the whole time. Just a
Two
funny
things-
tidbit. I don't know.
Yeah.
2 things about that scene. The first is, and this happens at one other point in the movie, women not wearing bras, shirts coming off, no bras, like, which is very common with a lot of 80 movies.
Yeah.
But also, I had a long period of time after this movie when I became like a teenager, well, more like a college student, that any party that I would go to, I had to check the shower.
That's hysterical.
Just because you don't want that guy that you've been eye-fucking
Oh,
across
wow.
the room to be in the be in the
Okay,
shower
yeah.
stall, like after you've been drinking Schlitz all night and eating
Yeah.
Taco Bell.
That would be
But
traumatizing.
fact-
You're right. Yeah.
But the fact that she went in and she just put on her lipstick, I was like,
Oh, yeah.
"Whew, good
Oh,
good thing.
And seemed very calm when he just popped up.
Yeah.
Very.
Like for someone just scaring you, it's like it was
She's like,
what
oh,
are you doing
hi.
here?"
And there's that sort of like dark humor that I alluded to, where he's like, when he's in the shower, he's like pretending to shoot the party goers, like
Yeah.
something that you probably wouldn't see in a movie now. It's a little taboo, but like
No.
but I kind of like that it has that edginess to it. This movie, and we'll talk about that more a little bit later. But to keep going through what occurs in the movie, so. Julie, like we said, she's okay with strange boy she just met hanging out in the shower, creeping on her. That's fine. But I guess she likes him, right? She meets him and she knows there's something different about him, not like the other guys, I guess, that she's used to. And he shows her that, so he takes her out, takes her to a club. I guess he wants to show her his world, sort of. And they have that conversation, which I thought was interesting. Because clearly he likes Julie, but Randy starts saying stuff about how she's pre-programmed and, how she's really not free and stuff like that, which I guess sort of like sounds enticing to her, like interesting, but it's just, it's interesting concept to, someone you like to be saying that kind of stuff to them. But I guess he's trying to help her or something, but yeah. But I guess that's kind of like the core of the movie, right? It's like he sees her one way and she sees him another way. Romeo and Juliet, right? 2 different worlds. But from there they do begin dating, and we complete with a montage where they
Great
go see.
montage.
Yeah, great montage. Perfect.
Great
montage.
song.
Great song. Yep. Is that I Melt with You? Right. That's
Modern
Yeah.
English,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah. Where they go see Romeo and Juliet, and I thought that whole that was like the perfect montage for this movie, and so Tommy, he's still missing Julie, and he's talking to her friends, and he's like, this geek that she's hanging out with, he's gonna scar her life and stuff like that.
She'll never recover.
Yeah, something like that, and
Yeah, it's hysterical.
and Julie's
That's a
pretty,
great.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. That's a great scene because it's kind of the only other time that you get a glimpse that Lauren is still is aware that Tommy's not a good guy and that he did something kind of bad to her, because she says to him, "You're right. She did dump you and your advice."
Mm-hmm.
And everyone kind of looks at her like, "Oh, why doesn't she why is she upset at Tommy?"
Yeah.
And it's kind of the first time that you see a result of what Tommy did to her at the party, that
Yeah.
she's angry at him and she
Right.
knows that he's not a good guy.
Which, going back to the idea of that being like the fact that it didn't become this big moment of conflict where Julie found out about it and was mad, I think that is a lot more realistic, where it's like something would happen between a couple friends without one of them knowing about it, and the other one kind of keeps it in, but acts on it in a really kind of passive aggressive subtle way, but it never
Yeah.
actually comes to a head. So I think that's actually a really cool piece of writing right there.
Yeah. And
I
so
agree.
I guess Julie and her, Julie's pretty influenced by her friends, I guess, and based off what they, what Tommy said to them and then what they talk about, she decides to break it off with Randy and actually go back to Tommy, which I was not a fan of.
After having a conversation, a real heart-to-heart with her father, that
Yeah.
That was a good scene too, yeah.
it was a great, yes.
Yeah. And they end up going to the prom together, her and Tommy. But of course, Randy's not going to have that. So after his little depressive sequence there, his going back to the club and getting drunk and all that, he decides that he's going to infiltrate the prom, and this sets up our last act, I guess, of the movie. and just to
You forgot his montage of grand gestures, grand romantic.
Oh, right,
gestures.
yeah.
Yes,
Well, that's
very
important. So let's talk about that. Yeah.
That is an odd. It's a great. It's odd because she is aware. I am assuming that is him. She is aware that because he's still sleeping out on her lawn and jumping into cars that she's in.
Yeah. Who else would it be?
And it's hard to tell if she appreciates it or is.
I think she secretly does, but it's kind of like she's not allowing herself to feel this way about him, or is trying to suppress it.
Because being with him could scar her for the rest of
he's bad
her
news.
life. She's
all
like,
right, he's bad news.
She doesn't want to lose her friends over being with this guy.
And he's a geek.
I mean, that does seem to be it. That her friends are. It's either her friends. I believe she said it's either you guys or Randy. Not necessarily being with Tommy.
Yeah.
But Tommy is just. I guess she has to have a boyfriend, and Tommy would be her boyfriend if she wanted to still be with her friends.
He's like her expected boyfriend, sort of.
Yeah, and those friends, I just feel the need to know, are extremely toxic to Julie in terms of like her happiness, because it's like every time something comes up, they give the worst advice, but none of them stop and say, well, like, what makes you feel? Her dad does, but like none of them are like, well, what makes you feel better? What makes you happier? They're all just like, oh no, like if you're gonna be with him, I don't even want to be seen with you. Like those are not the best friends in the world.
No.
But.
We also forgot to mention what every 80s movie needs, and that is a sexy sleepover in sexy attire.
Yeah, besides the montage, you need that sleepover scene.
Yes, where they talked about why being with Randy is bad and why being with Tommy would be good.
Yeah. But also, I guess part of that is because of her friend Lauren, I guess either secretly liking Tommy or just feeling shame about what she's done with him. And I guess, I don't know, there might be some of that as well. But yeah, it's almost like it's a status thing, which I guess is very, not only the Valley, but also just like life in high school. It's like you have this status, hierarchy sort of, different cliques, different groups and things like that. And it's like, well, Julie, you should be with Tommy. Like, Tommy is the right choice, and total superficial, but I mean, that's how it goes sometimes. But, her heart's telling her Randy. So we get that ending where Randy, like I said, infiltrates the prom, eventually punches out Tommy backstage
Great
as they're
scene.
as they're about to name the king and queen of the prom. Punches him out. It's great. And then we get the food fight, which is always a good scene in these kind of movies. So we didn't get a pillow fight in the sleepover scene, but we got a food fight.
Yeah.
So that was good. Get a food fight, and we got many real fights. So
and a lot of punching out.
Not a lack of fights in this movie.
No.
I love that Randy said to him before he punched him, he said, "I'm going to give you the chance that you didn't give me."
Yeah.
Which was
that
no
good.
chance when he punched him out at the party, and then you just punched him, and the band is on the stage looking.
Yeah, that was karma right there. That was great.
Also, just side note about that scene, the lady who gives the prom king and queen speech,
the principal.
Yeah,
the principal. She is just so emotional.
I'm concerned for her.
Yeah, she actually might have one of the most complicated backstories of anybody in this. In this whole, she's very brief, but she really steals that scene because
there's got to be some deleted scenes or something. Yeah. But that
I like in movies like this the how inconsistent proms can be. Whereas I was really surprised, and in my memory it was there, but it wasn't the case that in this prom there was someone wearing the quintessential 80s tuxedo shirt. But they weren't. But I saw someone like in sneakers. Then I saw like Randy in his pink tux, or not Randy, Tommy in his pink tux. Which I wonder, was that a thing? Like, was that
Maybe.
cool?
It might have been.
And then you just see people in different variations of dressed up.
Yeah.
For proms.
Maybe it was so uncool that it was cool. Who knows?
Maybe.
Well, also with that prom scene, one thing I read, a kind of fun little movie fact, is that because this was a low budget movie, all the extras were non-union, and so a lot of the extras at the prom scene were people from local like fraternities. And so I wouldn't be surprised if some of them were kind of people told like bring your own,
Yeah,
whatever.
probably.
Like
That makes
they
sense.
probably had footwear for some, but for a lot they were probably like, we can give you a tux, but you
Mm-hmm.
need to wear your own shoes. And because they're a bunch of 19-year-olds from frats, they're probably just like, yeah, I'll wear my Nikes.
Yeah.
It's just like there's probably not a lot of thought put into that, but
Yeah, Jeremy,
I
I,
also-
I appreciate that you always note the wardrobe in the movies that we talk about, because it goes unnoticed a lot, I think. But
The wardrobe in this movie is pretty amazing.
yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
which once again, a lot of it, it was because it's a low budget movie. Another thing I read along these same lines is that a lot of the wardrobe just came from people who worked on the film.
That makes sense.
Like if there are some women working on the film, it was the early, because I think because this film now is period piece, because now we look back on
Yeah.
it and it feels so vintage. But at the time, like a lot of this, they shot the movie in LA. A lot of the people working on it might have even been from the Valley.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely possible that a lot of the wardrobe just kind of was like, oh, this feels like something she would wear. What do you have in your closet? Let's just
Well,
throw it on and see if it fits.
The director, Martha Coolidge, was she from that area?
I believe she was actually. I have her Wikipedia pulled up. I believe she was actually. Yeah, it says right here. She was born in New Haven, Connecticut, and studied at RISD, and later got her MFA at Tisch at NYU.
okay.
She might have. It looks like she did live in LA for a while before this movie was made. So
Before the movie,
I think
okay.
she was. Yeah, she was integrated into that culture, but
yeah.
she wasn't from there.
Okay, but she was a little familiar with it. And also, I feel like New Haven, Connecticut probably has a lot of that, like, kind of almost like, I don't know. There's like certain, like, status symbols and things like that I think are kind of relevant.
Valley East.
Yeah, exactly.
What I
So-
want to know is what band or what prom committee decides we're going to get Josie Cotton
Oh, yeah.
to play at
I wanna
our
talk about
prom,
that.
which especially because these are right. So they're Valley kids. Josie Cotton's music is pretty Valley, but she's got like a new wave punk
Yeah.
look, and it just seemed an interesting choice. Also, a live band like that, very specific
Yeah.
for your prom, seems like an interesting choice as well.
Well, maybe they were playing a cover band who they were covering themselves.
That's possible.
Covering
Maybe everything else was Men at Work covers.
Yeah, there you go. Who knows? Yeah, I feel like they always have like some kind of like hugely popular band, or not even hugely popular, just really well known, which is kind of cool. And so the ending, I want to talk about it because it's very, I don't know if this was intentional or not, probably, but it felt very Graduate-esque.
Oh,
like
yeah.
the movie
There's
The
a lot of
Yeah.
Graduate references in this movie.
Okay,
Absolutely.
yeah, I must have missed the other ones, but yeah, the ending is very...
There's like that side plot of the one friend likes Brad, and who shows up to that, who is interested in her mom.
Oh, yeah.
That's like a whole side
Oh, yeah.
plot.
How could I forget that? Yeah, I didn't mention that, but
It's another
little...
boob scene.
Yeah,
Yes.
another
But
boob
she
scene.
makes a Graduate reference to him that
Yeah.
I don't know if he got. I'm
don't
kind
know
of
if he got it.
It
curious.
looked like it went right over his head. The plastics
I'm-
reference.
Did they think
Yeah,
the
plastic.
viewers would get it?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that whole subplot.
I was just waiting. I was just waiting for Mrs. Robinson to start playing.
Yeah, I know.
I remember watching this for the first time. I'm like, they're gonna do it. But then they played that great track. Is it like "Monster of Love"?
Yes.
It's
Good one.
such a great. I'm so happy. I don't know if maybe they were thinking about getting the rights to Mrs. Robinson, but like I was just waiting for that song
Yeah.
to come. But I was
What
kind
did
of happy
you-
they didn't.
What did you think about that little surprise when you thought like in the shower was her mom, but then her mom comes in and who he's really with is, I can't remember her name, but the one friend.
The mom's daughter.
Yeah, the
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know what was going to happen.
I believe
with
that was. I believe that was Susie. It's kind of tough
Susie,
because all
yeah.
these girls
The other
have
girls-
these names that end with an E. So it's like Julie, except for Lauren, like Julie, Stacy,
Yeah.
Susie. It's like it gets very.
You're
tough
right, I
to,
think
like,
it
keep
was
track of all
Susie.
of them. I think it was Susie. I thought that was a cool little reveal.
Mhm.
I mean, it was something I couldn't totally figure out. Like
I didn't know what to expect
what they
with that
were,
whole.
what they were,
subplot.
yeah, what they were saying
Yeah.
with it. At least personally, like I was kind of rooting for him to like get with the mom,
Yeah.
just because
That's what I
like,
thought was
a
going to
more
happen, for sure.
Interesting dynamic, but I
Well,
guess it's just not that movie. And
It also didn't seem like he was that interested in Susie. So I
Yeah.
think he kind of was like, all right, I'm
Sounds like-
here. I'm trespassing and I'm
Yeah.
here. So I better
Yeah, he was sort of aloof,
make do with what's happening.
but it was good for
he's like,
comedy.
all right,
Yeah.
yeah, this is the hand I've been dealt, so I'm gonna.
Yeah.
But you're right. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. So lots of Graduate references, I guess. But the ending is very Graduate. So Randy and Julie run off from the prom and they go into the back of the limo. Limo drives away. They kind of look at each other, and there's that silence there, and music playing, but
although they laugh.
They laugh.
It's
it's a little. Yeah, it's almost like tongue in cheek. It's like we're kind of alluding to this, but we're gonna do our own take on it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we kind of think for a second it might be that where they're like, oh no, what's gonna happen?
Right.
But then they laugh and we're like, oh no, like it's okay.
We're just having a good time.
It's still a happy ending.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think also there's a moment in her face where you realize like she's like, okay, like this is it. Like my friends are probably not going to be my friends anymore. Like everything is going to be different. I hope this was a good choice.
Right. But again, it's like I think point of it's like she shouldn't care what other people think. So it's like maybe she's like turning over a new leaf. Yeah. At least you like to think that she is, but.
Because there's definitely no going back after that. Because the guy that she's with now not only is like some wild card, but he just showed up and ruined their prom. So like, it's like
exactly.
Like now it's not just her friends. Now the whole school doesn't like this guy. So there's
I
no
think
going
is
back
cool,
at that
but,
point.
what do I know?
Yeah.
Yeah, this Ray punk, he's gonna scar her life now, I guess. But
yeah.
Hopefully they live happily ever after, though we never find out, I guess.
I give them about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like they would have had like maybe two weeks of like really being in love, and then things
cooling off.
There would have been a cooling off.
Yeah.
And
because when you start that intensely, that hot and heavy, it's like, yeah.
Yes.
But who knows? Maybe they got married, had some kids. But so that's Valley Girl, and I was very pleasantly surprised by it. Did not know what to expect really going into it. But again, I appreciated the sort of darker elements to it and the humor that was present. It was very unexpected, a lot of it. And like I said, it reminded me a bit of films like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, where there's all these different characters and a lot going on. And some of it's a little bit, serious, and some of it isn't. And it has that sort of like free-flowing Richard Linklater vibe to it. I don't know if you guys got that, but you're kind of just like following these different characters around, and also, even though they're portraying a materialistic culture, like I said, much of the dialogue and characterizations, I thought they felt pretty genuine. I thought there was something about them that
I think Nicolas Cage especially was acting with a capital A. Like, I think he was like, this is my chance. Really, because there's a lot of little details that he does that I'm like, oh yeah, he really worked hard. I have in my notes at one point I said, I feel like Nicolas Cage is in a different movie than everyone else. Because I felt like he was really working.
But isn't he always, though? I think
yes, absolutely.
Like the charm.
That's true.
That's the charm.
Nicolas Cage has made a lot of movies that are Nicolas Cage movies. But
right.
Yeah.
But not, not as much in this one, because I guess he was still kind of finding his feet as an actor.
But not like chewing the scenery, but like, I feel like these little details of the way he behaved and his saunter and everything, I feel like that's him. Like, that's really little things that he wanted to put in to kind of really sit in the skin of this character.
Yeah, I feel like he was like method almost. Like, he was really getting into character behind the scenes and stuff like that.
Well, he actually was. I read in my notes that he slept in a car in Los Angeles for 20 nights.
Of course he
during
did.
the making of this movie.
Wow. Okay, I actually wasn't even going to bring that up. There was something else I was going to bring up, but that's interesting. I was going to bring up that apparently in real life, Nicolas Cage had a crush on Deborah Foreman, who plays Julie. And he later, like, he commented on it later in an interview, just like saying that he adored her. And so he said there was actually very little acting going on his part, according to him, which is very sweet.
I just wonder how much of that was the method talking. Like I know there's this one great episode of the show BoJack Horseman. I don't know if either of you watch that.
Yes.
But, Naomi Watts is on the show briefly, and she's like doing a movie with the main character BoJack. And while they're doing the movie, they're kind of like, it seems like they might be in love, but the minute the movie wraps, she's like, well, I was method acting and the movie's done now, so I'm not into you anymore. So I wonder how much of his infatuation with Deborah Foreman was him or the method kind of like he was infatuated with her because he was so deep in the character that he couldn't separate the two.
It seemed pretty passionate, but you're right. I mean, his character is very passionate, so he was apparently writing poetry to her on set and things like that, so who knows? Yeah, it might be a little bit of both, I guess.
He was in it.
He was in it.
Where Nicolas Cage ended and where Randy began was blurry at best.
Right.
I mean, as a woman, he he does this kissing thing where he has his giant looking hands on her head,
Yeah.
where I was like, yes, like,
He just like
yes.
grasps her. It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. This movie makes my heart hurt a little, like in a good way,
Yeah.
in a way where I'm just like, oh, I remember those feelings.
Yeah.
And
It's
for a while
something.
I stopped watching it because I was like, this is too hard. And
Yeah.
then I watched it, when I watched it the other night, I was like, okay, yeah, like I'm not aching as much, but like the memory of the ache is there, and
Right.
that's really nice.
So when was the last time you had watched this movie, Jill?
I must have watched, I distinctly remember getting it years before my daughter was born. So maybe like 10 years ago, and having friends over to watch it and feeling like I was going through a bit of a crisis after watching it because of the aching and the like,
Right.
things aren't like that anymore.
Yeah.
But
So you
yeah,
hadn't
that
seen it in a while, I guess.
it had been a while.
Yeah. So how did you feel? I mean, just coming back to it after all that time, was it?
Some, you know, there
Still
are
holds
some
up,
things
or-
like it does in some ways. I'm glad to say that it ages relatively well in the way that some 80s movies don't age well. It's not
Right.
rapey or anything like that.
No, not well, yeah.
It
Is
really
it?
isn't.
Yeah, no, it's not. There's not. Yeah.
But I remember thinking that Nicolas Cage was gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And he just looked really skinny, like so skinny.
He was so young at this time. I'm
He
not
was,
sure how old he
it was like a baby,
Yeah.
But yeah, it holds up well.
Yeah.
I mean, the music is great.
Music's great.
The way it's used is good. Like
Mm-hmm.
the characters are interesting. I'm not quite sure what he likes about her so much because she
Yeah. I
she's
was thinking
very
like,
easily swayed.
Yeah, her character is like a little thin, I think, but also, you know, that criticism could be said about all the characters in the movie. So when I was thinking about it, I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense. Like it's more of like just a snapshot of all these different characters, and even though we don't get too involved in any one character, it's like it's more of like an overview of like, you know, this whole scene at the time. So in that sense, I thought it made sense, and that's why I kind of got that Linklater feel of like, you know, we talked about Slacker on this podcast before, where it just kind of goes from one character to the next. But yeah, I thought the two leads did a great job. I thought their acting was great. Obviously, Nicolas Cage was amazing, as always.
Obviously.
Always gives it his all. And the script was written in 10 days, which is very interesting as well. I just wanted to mention that real quick.
It's nuts. That's
Nuts,
so crazy.
yeah. Well, you know, for all the witty dialogue that's in it, it's kind of crazy. But it also makes sense because it's an indie, it's low budget.
Yeah.
I think
Cranked it out.
I think the director kind of had that green light, and she just like went for it. You know, she was like,
Yeah.
"All right, let's make this thing." Like, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let's not wait for someone to change their mind.
Yeah, I don't know if it was like her passion project or anything, but it was kind of like, I'm getting like she knew this could potentially be big for her, and she, you know, Martha Coolidge, she would go on to make Real Genius with some of the same actors actually as in this
Yeah.
movie, which I
Deborah
actually have
Foreman.
not seen it, and I don't think
Great
Jeremy has
movie.
either. Okay,
I haven't seen it yet. No.
I want to see it. I mean, I love Val Kilmer too, so I'll definitely check that.
She
one out.
she also made the movie Rambling Rose, I believe.
I haven't seen that one.
I haven't seen it either with
Yeah,
Laura Dern.
Dern.
Oh, I love Laura
But
Dern. Okay.
thinking of Laura Dern, before I forget, interestingly, the DP for this film, Valley Girl, was Frederick Elms, who also shot Eraserhead and Blue Velvet.
Wow.
Wow.
So that I just thought that was a weird connection.
You know what? Maybe that's why I got that kind of darker feel. Like
Yeah.
it's almost subtle. Yeah.
And I thought, especially for a low budget movie, I thought the cinematography in this is. I mean, he's one of my favorites.
Definitely.
But like it's one of those moments when I saw his name pop up in the credits, and like it took me a second because I'm like,
Yeah.
why do I know that name? I'm like, oh yeah, like that's David Lynch's director.
Mhm.
Like that is a weird going from.
Yeah.
And this was obviously after Eraserhead.
Right.
And probably you know, I mean, Blue Velvet came out in '86.
Mhm.
So he might have even kind of been in pre-production talking with David Lynch about Blue Velvet.
Mhm.
So this movie did kind of fall into a weird time in like the scope of his career.
Yeah. He might have
as
also
well,
been
so-
like a working cinematographer in that area too, like the LA area.
Yeah. So that's just a weird fun fact.
That is awesome. I didn't even realize that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, this movie's very surprising in a lot of good ways. I really loved it, and I thought a couple people who also love this movie, which was interesting. One of them is Kevin Smith. Apparently, his wife, it's her favorite movie. And when she was giving birth, he brought the VHS of it into the
Oh.
into the actual delivery room with them.
Interesting.
Which is interesting. Yeah, I guess it calmed her down maybe when she was, or calmed both of them down. But and Quentin Tarantino also loves this movie. So yeah, I guess there's something about it. It's just it's very unique and also very genuine and very cool. And Joe, I'm glad that this worked out and that you were able to come on the show and talk about it with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Can I mention my favorite line before I go?
Sure.
Yes.
All right. But when they attack the car, save the radio.
Save the radio. That's
Save
a
the
good
radio.
one. There's lots of good lines, actually. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Lots of good lines.
Oh, actually, you know what? One other thing I want to mention. Actually, two more things. Quick things. One thing, Julie is not on the cover of this movie.
Who is that?
Not in the poster.
I don't know
wondering
who that is.
That is not Julie.
No.
And, you know, actually, I looked it up. I'll look it up again real quick. But it was...
Is it a painting? Is it an illustration?
No, it is an actress. I think she is in the movie.
No, I've always been aware of that. That cover drives me crazy
Yeah.
because
It's so bizarre.
it doesn't make any sense. And yes, that is not her.
No, it's not. Oh, here we go. The iconic poster image, I'm reading this off IMDb, but still used on the DVD and Blu-ray artwork of Randy and Julie is not Deborah Foreman, but actress Tina, I'm not sure how to say her last name, Theberge, Theberge, who wound up playing Randy's nightclub lover before Foreman was cast. Oh, okay, so maybe,
Okay.
oh, that's interesting. Oh, maybe so it was like, maybe for like production stills or something like that, and they just ended up using it, which is bizarre.
Oh, her name is Samantha. She's the
so
bar girl
she
that
is
he
in the
hooks up
movie.
with in the
Oh,
bathroom.
Okay.
It's
So
just that is just very odd though, because like you wonder at what point on a small budget movie like this they were making the poster that they couldn't get their lead actress to
And it's not
pose
like
for a quick
yeah,
photograph.
and it's not like she's a big star. I mean, she wasn't even in anything else really that much. Very, very bizarre. It's just one of those weird things.
If anybody listening ever gets the chance to meet anybody who was involved with the production of this movie, please ask that
Yes,
question
please.
because I would be very
And then
curious.
email us and let us know.
Yes.
Oh, and then one other thing I wanted to mention, because this is actually very relevant, and we didn't realize this when we were talking about this movie, but a remake of this movie just came out this year.
Yes.
And it's a musical, which I think makes sense. I've not seen it. Have either of you seen it? I think it's
I
actually
haven't, but a lot of the actors who are in
Yeah.
the original
they show up
are in it.
either as
but not-
cameos or
Yeah. Not Tommy, who has been in a bunch of Quentin Tarantino movies.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
he
he was
was-
in Kill Bill.
Yes.
And,
Oh, interesting.
yeah. Let's check that actor. That I believe his name is. That is what is it? Michael Bowen.
Michael Bowen.
Yeah,
Okay.
he-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
He was in Jackie Brown. He was
Yeah.
in Kill Bill.
Right.
Apparently Breaking Bad as well at some
Okay.
point.
Yeah.
So he's actually a pretty
Cool.
maybe other than Nicolas Cage, kind of one of the most lucrative careers
Mhm.
of anyone in the cast from this movie.
Yeah. And that remake came
I-
out this year. I had no
It
idea.
does not look
Yeah.
good.
No, it doesn't.
Maybe
yeah.
it is.
I mean, it could be. Who knows?
I do know Martha Coolidge, the director of the original Valley Girl, went on the record as saying she was very much not happy
Oh.
about the remake. I don't know if it was that. I have a quote. I have a quote from her. It says, "I think when a movie is great to start with, then it almost really sort of embarrassing to redo it. To me, one shouldn't touch films like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure companies want to because they think they'll make money, but I find it depressing, actually." So some of the actors were involved. Martha Coolidge did not sign off on
Okay.
this one.
That's never a good sign, but yeah, it seems a little more kitschy. It seems like it's kind of going for that angle of it, which.
But who knows? It could be great. Who are we to judge until we've seen it? So
I just think when you have like punks and then whatever your other group is, it made sense in the 80s because there was class, there was like music different. There was a lot of, and in California it seems like they were like totally different worlds. But
Yeah.
it just, I don't know if that works anymore. I know it's not supposed to be like current day, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it also takes place at the same time as like in the 80s as well. But yeah, I think you're right. I think the message is like different now. I think it's like, I mean, it's just such a different world that we live in now. And that first Valley Girl was such a time capsule, but at the same time, very timeless. I thought, like I said, a lot of the dialogue, a lot of the writing was very, almost like hip and modern, and yeah, just kind of stands the test of time, I guess. And Jill, I'm glad to hear that you still enjoyed it. And
Love it.
Yeah.
It was great to watch. Thank you for giving me a reason to rent it and watch it again. I almost watched it on YouTube in clips, and then finally I paid for it.
well,
But
when you said it was your favorite movie, I was like, all right, we got to do this.
Yeah.
Because
No, I was so excited when you guys said you were doing it.
the timing worked out perfectly.
One quick note, just a random thing before we hop off.
Yeah.
Just in reference with our series, at one point during the film, I actually spotted it. So a film we talked about previously, Eating Raoul.
I saw that too.
Oh,
You saw Eating Raoul? Oh, it's a favorite. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one will be. Yeah, that's a favorite of mine as well. The limo driver outside of the prom at the end is reading a newspaper, and there's an ad on the back of the newspaper for Eating Raoul. So
It's
so
the
that's
first
just a
time I've
fun-
noticed it. Yeah.
Yeah, just a fun
fun-
movie cult connection.
another little connection there.
Yeah.
We've had that a couple times in this series, actually, so it's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But there you go. So 80s Indies. So we're gonna keep the series going. This was like as we discussed, Valley Girl, and next up, we're gonna be watching She's Gotta Have It, Spike Lee joint, his very first joint. So hopefully you can watch along and listen in on that one as well, just like Jill has done. And again, thank you, Jill, for coming on the show.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, we really
This was
appreciate it.
great.
Hopefully you'll come back and talk about another movie. Hopefully we'll get to do Beyond the Valley of the Dolls at some point.
Yes, I would love that.
That's a great one. Thanks again. And this has been Cult Movie Cult. Thanks for listening. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. If you have any cult films you'd like to hear us discuss on the show, or if you'd like to officially join the cult, like Jill has done, and be a guest on the show, please feel free to reach out to us at cultmoviecult@gmail.com. This has been Cult Movie Cult, and until next time, so long from the other side.